Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our panel today on Creative Minds Meet AI, how AI is transforming education and the workplace. We have an absolutely all-star, amazing panel with us today, some of the most impactful companies in the world. My name is Alex Sarlin. I am the co-host of EdTech Insiders. It's a podcast and newsletter about the EdTech industry. Oh, nice. Look, wow. And also run a discovery program accelerator at CanBR Education. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. They all have really long, amazing bios, but they're going to give the sort of shortened versions. Let's start at the end with Jason.
Thanks, Alex. Jason Wilmot here. I'm the head of public sector for Canva, but my near and dear home is education. I've been in ed tech for over 20 years and excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren McCann, and I lead the education team at Figma. If you're not familiar, Figma is kind of like the collaborative platform where teams come together to build products. Before starting the team at Figma, I was at Google for Education, where I led product marketing for platforms like Google Classroom, Google Workspace, Google Meet, and helped them grow to reach and serve over hundreds of millions of students. And yeah, before that, I started my career as a middle school teacher in India.
Awesome. My name's Katie Camacho-Smith, and I work at TikTok. I am the head of education, now nonprofits, government, and sports. So also my span has grown. I've been there for 3 years. TikTok's been around in a revenue standpoint for about 4 years. So kind of been there from the beginning and really excited connecting with education brands to meet students where they are.
Hi, I'm John Rethins. I lead global education partnerships at YouTube. You may have heard of us. And early in my career, I was also a teacher. I taught in the Peace Corps in Nicaragua, and I also taught in the classroom, 4th and 5th grade. So really great to be able to do the work both at the small and large scale.
Absolutely. Amazing panelists. So yeah, please. Yeah, please. So, you know, one of the big benefits for all of us in EdTech is scale, is being able to reach as many learners as possible and really go as wide as we can. And these companies up here are at a scale that is sort of unprecedented in human history. I'll give a couple of stats, right? Figma is used by over 1 million design teams on any given day. Canva has 170 million users worldwide. TikTok, over 1 million creators and over 1 billion users. And YouTube has over 2 billion logged in monthly users. So these are numbers, you know, we don't usually hear in education. My question for the panel is, you know, with such scale, what do you see as your biggest contribution to supporting these enormous communities' educational goals? Let me start with you, Katie.
Yeah, so I'm a mom. I have 2 young daughters, 6 and 9. And I think with TikTok, what's really great is that it has so many different communities. And when I was growing up, it was kind of like who you knew, and that I was the first generation to go to college. But now it's kind of, with TikTok, flattened the organ. You can connect with all kinds of people. You want to be a lawyer, you want to be inspired to be a doctor. That's what happens on the platform, is connecting with authentic users and people that are outside of your network. So it's not really a social platform. So really in touch with communities.
Yeah. And how about you, John? 2 billion users.
So there's that saying that when the student is willing, the teacher appears. And in the case of YouTube, when the student is willing, thousands of teachers appear for that student to meet them where they are. And so it's really, really exciting work. And so there's a whole team of folks at YouTube that work on every day, get up and try and reduce barriers to high impact learning for our billions of users. The thing that really, I think there's kind of 3 things that really stand out about the learning experience on YouTube that we feel kind of really makes it special. The first is it's self-directed, right? So folks that are learning on YouTube are there because they want to learn, they're intrinsically motivated, and they're open to learn the thing that they want. The second is that the content is highly engaging, and that's really due to the fact that we have this amazing creator community that does learning content on YouTube in every country in the world, in every language, in every conceivable topic. And they really care about their users, and frankly, they have to, you know, stand out above the crowd because there's so many creators making this great content. And so they have to be very engaging, and over the years, they've become great at it. So, you know, everyone is familiar with Khan Academy, with Crash Course, with TED, PBS, Amoeba Sisters. The list goes on and on. We have so many fantastic creators that are dedicated to supporting their audience. And then the third part is that it's really a judgment-free zone. So folks can learn at the speed they want to learn. If they want to watch the video 5 times over, if they need to hear it slower, if they need to search the transcript to find the term they need, if they need additional context, all of those tools exist on the platform and really help learners. So I think, what that results in is kind of the largest learning library of video on the planet, and really helps people achieve their goals, whatever they may be.
YouTube has become a go-to learning tool for people of all ages, and I'm sure a lot of people have learned English or other languages entirely through it as well. It's amazing. So, YouTube and TikTok are two-sided marketplaces. You're talking about your creator communities. Canva and Figma are incredible design tools, and they're really, and all 4 of your platforms have very low barriers to entry for new people to come in. They're super user-friendly. So my question for you all is, given how user-friendly your tools are, how do you make sure that your tools get in front of students so that they can actually find them, they can use them, they can learn them, and get ready for their careers, which may include them? Let me start with you, Jason, about Canva.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I think with Canva, the way we reach our students, our teachers, our educators, our communities that we've just been discussing is through a wide array of areas, but most importantly, it's all about equity and access. And in K-12, Canva gives away our premium product 100% free, and not-for-profit 100% free. In government and other areas, it's at a deeply discounted rate. But even if you're just a teacher, if you're a teacher in another country with a phone, you can access Canva and use our free offering. And I think that's really, like, that access and equity is really what we are focused on, and everything we do is driven by that philosophy of making sure that it's equitable and accessible. And I think when you think about the communities and tying this back in, it was interesting listening to Katie and John talk about communities, because what they're describing is a small group of people caring about what they care about and consuming what they care about on their platform. And I think that's what's great about Canva and Figma is small groups of community can go and create that content, and they can collaborate on that content and have learning places with TikTok and YouTube and other areas and other platforms. So, yeah, I mean, I think equity and access is really where we start with everything we do.
How about you, Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what Jason was talking about. Figma, we do everything 100% completely for free in education, which is awesome that we have the opportunity to do that. We serve learners of all types, from K-12 as young as 5 years old up to higher ed students, and even we have a ton of non-traditional learners who are going through boot camps to learn design, going through online courses, one of the there's a lot of philosophies that underpin a lot of our work, I'm sure, but I think a lot of the things we think about doing is based on, pretty obvious observation, right? That we're all spending increasingly more time online in our, so to speak, digital worlds. That's where we're going to learn. That's where we're working. That's where we're playing. And so within that context, our team really thinks about 3 things under that. We want to make sure that learners are learning the skills so that they can thrive and succeed in that digital world. We want to make sure that they feel excited about the opportunities of how they can shape that and see themselves in that world. And lastly, we want to get them, excited and motivated through collaboration and play. So kind of digging into that first one a little bit about making sure students have those skills to thrive in that digital world. I feel like all of us here, AI obviously is the topic of the century. And I think along with that, it's not necessarily immediately evident what are those skills students are going to need for the future. And so we try to think about, well, how can we help them have skills that are going to be relevant no matter what the jobs of tomorrow looks like? So maybe that is building towards hard skills to become a designer, a software engineer, a product manager, or more soft skills that will be useful everywhere, like how to be a team player, how to collaborate, how to solve tough problems, how to build from empathy. The second thing we really think a lot about too is how do we help students feel like they see a role for themselves in the field of technology. Once they've built those skills with Figma, we want to make sure that no matter where they're born, where they go to school, where they come from, that they feel that there are so many ways that they can contribute and shape what that world's going to look like. And the best way to do that might be through taking an idea that lives in their head and making it a reality on Figma or a Canva or something like that. And then lastly, we're just super excited about how we can make learning more fun and engaging, whether that's happening in the classroom, outside of the classroom. We think learning can be more engaging, more community-centric, more joyful. As much as we want our students to reach their learning outcomes, we also want to make sure that they're having a little bit of fun along the way as well. So very similar to Jason, thinking about access and opportunity for them.
And just to add to that, I would say for TikTok, we're not making the content, creators are making the content, but it's a place where educational brands can show up and connect with those students. So, or parents like myself, or teachers, so that people are spending on average a movie's length a day. And so this is a great place, whether you're an institution, a university, to say that you do have programs for jobs of the future and show what that looks like, or you do have AI technology in your software and how you use that and what that looks like. So that's what the team I lead, that's what we do, is we connect with education brands on how they show up on the platform to get their voice across and cut through the clutter. Because with 9,000 videos made a minute, there's lots of content. YouTube has historically lots of content. Like, how do you show up and make sure that your content connects with the community, who they want to see, who they identify with?
I mean, all four of your tools are creative tools, and creativity in this modern era, especially AI-enhanced creativity, which is coming very quickly. It really is probably one of the core work skills of the future. And people who watch YouTube and then make YouTube videos, watch TikTok and then become a TikTok teacher or influencer or anything. And of course, Canva and Figma, very, very useful tools. It collapses the space between education and workforce tools, which is really interesting. Let's talk about educators as creators. So I think you both mentioned 1 million plus educator creators, or is that right? How many educator creators are on YouTube?
A lot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, Teachers of Talk has 65 billion on TikTok.
Wow, right. A couple of examples here, right? Kevin McClintock, Mr. McTikTok, a teacher with 2 million followers on TikTok who teaches history. Miss Rachel, who is on in my house every day, has 7 million subscribers on YouTube, has sort of replaced Sesame Street in a lot of ways. Let's start with you, Katie. How do you support educators who want to get their message out through a platform like yours?
Yeah, so I mean, the trends are always changing. So we have different tools that creators can go and see what's working, what's trending. Like I said, Teachers of Talk has 65 million. I think it's really about meeting the students where they are. So, I've been to this conference before, and I think we've constantly are like struggling with keeping things the same, but also being different. And I've worked in digital disruption for over 18 years. So back in the day, going to Zappos, where no one bought shoes online, no one bought anything online, to now fast forward, what do you not buy online? Like, even dish soap. So I think it's really connecting with the teachers, connecting with the students where they are versus trying to force them to come to them. And the teachers that have leaned in to the platform and taught in a fun way are seeing a lot of success.
So, so teachers can meet kids where they are, and they're on TikTok for hours a day. So it's a great way to spread their message. How about you, John? Let's talk about those YouTube educators.
Yeah, so there's as I said, a lot of YouTube educators, and I think when we think about how to support that ecosystem of creators that educate and also the learners that are there, we really think in terms of kind of 3 areas where we're developing experiences. So one is what's going on the platform itself. So we've recently launched a courses experience. So you can take a course on YouTube now. If you go on your Explore tab, you can see courses, and you can start taking courses there. We have creators that are doing that. So that's a way for them to lead to a deeper experience, right? Beyond just a first initial impression, getting into a deeper experience. In addition to that, other tools that we have are quizzes. So there's actually 3 kinds of quizzes that exist on YouTube today. Some of them are AI generated, and some of them are created by creators. And it's a way to kind of work a very fun and engaging, someone mentioned fun, fun and engaging experience that creators can create for the educational content. We're also doing things off platform as well. So there's a product that we have called Player for Education, and what that's really about is going out and meeting students on the applications that they're learning on, right? So not everybody is, learning on YouTube or any other single platform all the time. They're learning on all these LMSs and teaching tools, and we want to make sure that we can meet those students there in the ways that teachers and students want. So this is a special player that's designed to be available for ed techs to embed in their platform. It doesn't have links back to YouTube. It doesn't have ads. It doesn't have recommendations. And it just focuses on delivering that really great, impactful content. So that's a second thing that we have. And importantly, that product also really helps incentivize creators to create more content because they benefit directly from it. So that's a fantastic thing. And then the third thing that we're doing is we're really leaned into partnerships. And we've really focused on a few partnerships to build this kind of pathway from curiosity to credentials, or in what we say sometimes inspiration to instruction. So Study Hall, which is a project we did with ASU, or we are doing with ASU, really lowers the barriers to access for education by meeting people on the Study Hall channel with great content made by the Crash Course team. And that content leads folks to an experience where they can start taking their first college course for just 25 bucks. And so it's really exciting. So all of these are things that we get up and we build every single day so that teachers and students can benefit, but also our creators can reach out to their audiences in new ways.
And I would just build on that a little bit in terms of, obviously the educators are core to all of our platforms, but these partners, and when I think about the partnerships and collaborations we've done at Canva, it's really for those kids, right? We collaborated with NASA, the New York Times, Upschool, Financial Literacy. And I think you'll see this trend continue where these experts are now putting their content and creating their content on these platforms where students can get free, untethered access to it, and they can learn on their own. I always used to say they can learn outside the walls, even though that's been happening for a while, but it's really starting to happen. And they can learn from the experts at NASA on space exploration, and they can learn what it's about. And so I think, that's really one of the key things is when you look at these collaborations that EdTech partnerships are starting to get into, they're really for the benefit of the students, the teachers, the parents, and giving these kids additional information about skills that they may not get otherwise in their world. So,
yeah. And Lauren, do you want to talk about how educators use Figma in the classroom?
Yeah, sure. I mean, teachers, I always say, are the most creative people on the planet and do unreal things with your tools that you would never expect. Outside of even just like formal creator programs, teachers just every week are kind of like blowing our minds where we expect it to be one thing. I'd say like there's kind of a couple buckets. Like there's the expected use case, right, where teachers, mapping out a visual story arc. Maybe they're making a KWL or a pros con chart, or they're designing an app with their student. Last week we heard about this fourth grader who made this app to save endangered giraffes. That's his passion, I guess, and he made a whole app about how to fundraise for that. Then we kind of have the more like a little bit pushing the boundaries to reinvent traditional assessments. We've had English teachers who are like having their students design book jackets, so they're getting like a design element there, but also working on their ELA skills. We've had science teachers start hosting virtual labs inside of FigJam rather so that the kids can continue the experiment at home. And then just last week, we heard this hilarious example that I'd put in the like blow your mind category, or at least unexpected, where there's this second grade class who was designing things in Figma, designing drawings, and then they were printing them out with a pancake bot for breakfast. That was definitely not on our bingo card of Figma to pancake bot. Eat your creation. But that's the thing, teachers, like they'll come up with these incredible lessons and then the students will rise to the expectations and go even beyond, which is awesome to see.
I also think it helps too for being a parent, like teachers producing this content, because learning doesn't just happen in the classroom, and most of what you learn too happens at home. And for me to be able to keep up, like, am I smarter than a fifth grader, and know how to solve problems with my girls is really important. And in a very easy, tangible, someone that looks like me, break it down, doesn't have to be, someone that works at NASA. Can be, but
Right, so there are partnerships with content providers. There's the ability for creators to create their own content or to adapt content by adding quizzes or AI-generated quizzes. There's so many different really fascinating use cases for educators to get involved and to meet students where they are. You mentioned collaboration, Lauren, and I think this is another thing that's really an interesting aspect of all four of your platforms. I think they all really encourage people to collaborate, and this is in a world where people sometimes think online work is very isolating or online learning is very isolating, but the platforms that you all work on are all involve collaboration. So let's talk about that, because I think collaboration is a skill of the future and it is an important part of where learning is going. So, Katie, why don't we start with you? How you talk about TikTok collaboration?
I mean, we collaborate in many different ways. I mean, the platform is huge. I would say the STEM feed is probably one of the big ones where these are people that are really interested in that kind of learning. And so with content providers that want to produce different STEM feed content. It's an area where it can live and not be amongst like all the other noise of all the other videos. But personally, I really work a lot with universities. If you think about it, students no longer have to travel to go do a university walk. Rather, they can go online and they can search up any institution and see from a student's point of view what the school looks like. And actually, 1 out of 3 students are doing that. That's how they're deciding where they're going to school. So really working closely with partnerships with universities and colleges and ed tech providers and how they show up on the platform so that they come across authentic and that they increase engagement and meet their KPIs.
I think, the Google Suite is probably one of the most used collaborative tools in the world, in the workplace and in schools. Tell us about how Google thinks about collaboration as an educational skill.
Well, I can speak for YouTube. The Google conversation is much broader, but I think there's kind of, when we think about collaboration in the educational sense at YouTube, there's kind of like three levels of it. One is the collaboration associated with creating the content, right? I mean, it's like the capital C in the creator economy. And so that's like requires a lot of folks working together to build that great content. And so we provide lots of tools for doing that, whether someone mentioned the low barrier to entry, whether you're a really mature organization making YouTube content or you're a teacher making content for your classroom. So that's one level. I think the other is the collaboration of partnerships. So I mentioned the study hall partnership with ASU and Crash Course, but there's others as well. So there's the one we're doing with UNESCO called Meowla. So that's a really creative collaboration where UNESCO has identified standards-aligned content that exists on YouTube from creators in Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia, and made that available on a channel so that teachers and students in those countries can get high-quality, authoritative content to support and supplement education in those countries. So that's how we think about collaboration from a partnerships perspective as well. And then I think, really at the end of the day, our role at the company is to think about the ecosystem of everybody involved in the educational process. So you have everyone from the student and teacher who you want to engage, but also the administrators in the districts that want to make sure that the right content is showing up or appropriate content is showing up. The higher ed community, which is, looking for ways to engage with students and reduce barriers to access. I mean, if any of us have been in any of these panels with higher ed folks, that's a major issue. And so when we, as a team, look at this ecosystem, we think about how do we support all of these different parts of the ecosystem so that the students, the teachers, the creators, the ed techs, the higher ed community, all can not just benefit, but work with each other via our platform to further the cause of impactful education for students.
Terrific. Lauren, how about you? Figma's collaborative by nature.
Yeah, funny story, Figma's first name actually was multiplayer because it was all about like a design tool that was collaborative and that was kind of their thing. But yeah, it's a great question about like collaborative in education. And I'm actually really excited because I feel like we're actually moving even beyond what collaboration has traditionally looked like in the past to more of an era of collaboration. I mean, just to step back a little bit, I feel like for the longest time, right, education, and I talked about this on Alex's podcast, so was kind of stuck in this like consumption era, right? Where teachers would kind of, talk to their students, that whole kind of sage on stage, if you will, vibe. Students maybe would passively take in information and just didn't have a lot of input into what their own learning got to look like. And then I feel like Google, broke onto the scene in the mid-2000s or 2010 and introduced this like collaboration era, which was amazing. You could have people suddenly in the same page in real time working together, and that totally transformed how active students could be in their own learning and contributing to that. And I am excited because I think we're on the precipice of a new era with tools like Figma and Canva that's going to be more about like creation, where students with like an open canvas and visual communication tools, like they're really going to be able to fully own what their learning experience looks like, make it dynamic and make it work for them. I don't have a Figma file up here, but you could picture students, their cursors whizzing around. Some people are adding this, they're adding that, they're stamping this, they're voting this. And a lot of those things that are so magical about being in person in the classroom can actually get even amplified more on a digital platform. And we've just heard students just like love being in this open space together. They love seeing what other students are doing, and they just feel closer to each other versus previously, they'd be siloed into these separate docs. And so I'm just really excited to move even beyond collaboration to creation. They can continue to consume, they can continue to collaborate, but they can create now, they can build, they can make things that they never could before, and I think that's going to be really special.
Yeah, it is really exciting to think about all these skills and how different the classroom is looking already and how different it's going to look in the future. So we've gone this far in the panel with hardly talking about AI at all. Let's talk a little bit about AI. It's the theme of the century, as you said. Yeah, the theme of the decade. You all are using AI in your products. You all have used AI in your products in the past and are using generative AI. We're entering a very interesting era where students can, they can already do a lot of things that they're going to be able to do unbelievable things, create videos just with their minds, all sorts of really amazing things. So I'd like to go all the way through everyone just to hear how you're thinking about generative AI and sort of entering this new era and what it means for education for you. John, can I start with you? We'll just go down the line.
Very thoughtfully. So as you said, Google and YouTube, the AI is at the core of so much of how our systems work and the work that we do. When we're thinking about it in the context of education, particularly at YouTube, as we do across everything, we're thinking about it very carefully, and we're deploying it in ways that really are focused on helping users and creators, achieve their goals. So I'll give you a couple of examples of things that are out there today that we're using. So there's a program called Aloud, and that's a translation tool that creators can use to reach audiences in different languages. And it does auto dubbing. So imagine you're a creator, you have an audience, you've been teaching in, say, English for quite some time, and you want to reach a Spanish language audience in LATAM, or you want to reach a Brazilian audience in Portuguese, or a Hindi speaking audience, or an Indonesian speaking audience. All of those languages are supported by Aloud, and it allows creators to do that through the YouTube platform. And it's had really phenomenal results for us. So that's one example. One of the things that was spoken about on an earlier panel is a really great partnership with Google DeepMind and ASU and Crash Course around the study hall experience. And what we're really doing there is digging in deep to do research to understand how AI chatbots can actually help students and help scale high quality education to reduce cost and thereby open up accessibility for folks. And so that's a really great partnership as well that, obviously has implications over time, and we're really excited to see where it goes. Yeah.
Super interesting. TikTok and AI.
Yeah, personally, I use AI and I love AI. I think leading a big team, being able to be more efficient in your job is really helpful. I always am, on a personal level, having debates with other parents about AI, and I kind of see it like this way, the internet opened up, a lot of hesitation, people didn't want to use it. Now it's what do we not do on the internet? And so AI's here. It's going to come in every fashion with every product, and it's just really leading into it and understanding how you're going to use it and start using it, and where there's areas of opportunity. We're barely there. In terms of TikTok, we don't make products like that to sell, but I work very closely with the Grammarlys of the world that they are including AI, and how are they showcasing that to users. And so we want to make sure that we're encouraging that students really have to also put in the work. And I think that's what's going to be the new future, is that those that actually are hard workers and use tools are going to rise, and those that are kind of stuck in their old ways, it's going to be hard for them because AI is going to make you be able to move faster and communicate with all different communities that you weren't able to before. So grit's going to be huge in education and in the workforce. That's kind of my...
I'd say for Figma, specifically for education, there's probably two things here that we're really focused on in AI. The mission of our whole company is to make design as accessible to as many people as possible. And so we think AI is just going to be an absolute force multiplier on this front. It's going to raise the ceiling about what's possible. It's going to lower the floor about what's possible, on the raise the ceiling in the sense that professional designers, they'll be able to do their best work faster, more efficiently, reach creative heights, and do things they never would have done before. And then for us, most importantly, we're really focused on that lowering the floor. So you could have students or folks that are switching into design, trying to learn about the field, who have never touched a design tool in their life, and they're going to be able to build an incredible app and take that idea, again, that was living in their mind and make it a reality, which is really helping us realize Figma's. Well, first we had multiplayers. I told you, bad name, not good SEO. Then we came up with Figma, which actually is short for figment of your imagination. And so we think AI is going to be like an amazing way to actually make that vision finally a reality. And then the second thing for education that my team's thinking a lot about is about how AI is kind of, for a long time, educators, we've been really focused on like the final product, right? What's that final essay my students turning in? What's that final paper? And how is that representative of what they've learned over the course of my class? I think with AI, obviously, it brings up a lot of questions about what are the types of assessments we should look at to understand what a student's learned, what level of mastery they have over this, and what are the types of assessments that I can rely on in an age where my student might just use ChatGPT to write an essay. And so I think that's going to push the whole industry towards valuing not only the end product, that will always be important, but how do you also value the process along the way of what my student researched, what they learned, what they iterated, how they got here. And so we're really excited about how tools like Figma and FigJam, our whiteboard, can really help to show that process so that it's not just the end product and the end paper that the student's turning in, but how AI can allow us to also care about what it took to get there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean by like the grit and the perseverance, because now we're all kind of on more of a equal playing field. And so it's going to be those that use it, reiterate, and keep making something that is of their very own.
100%.
Yeah, and at Canva, obviously, we're really focused on visual communication. And when you think about visual communication, you can think about it all the way from a second grader communicating their ideas visually, all the way to higher education into the workplace. And so we're being very thoughtful from AI's perspective, because obviously AI hit it about a year ago, year and a half ago, and everybody went to ChatGPT and just tested it. And then 6 months later, probably nobody, I don't want to say nobody, but a lot of people didn't know what to use it for in their specific scenario. They were writing prompts, workplace, we're using it for emails, we're using it for other areas. In education in Canva, we're trying to be very thoughtful about some of the scenarios that educators and students will be using Canva for, and trying to build a safe, secure platform that really enhances that visual communication. Whether that be you've created a Word document, you can convert it to a design, you can convert it to a presentation. Let's say you were collaborating on a whiteboard in Canva. With a click of a button, you can take that whiteboard, convert it into a document. Something pretty simple, pretty useful, though, in many cases when the teacher, which my students, my individual children, who are also complaining, they'll say, Dad, I had to create a document, then I had to create a presentation. I'll show them how to do it, and they'll be like, whoa, that was amazing. We could do that in Canva. But my teacher made me actually, I'm like, there's some value in that, right? Like, what's the assessment that your teacher is trying to do? And in other cases, you've collaborated in a small group whiteboard, you've converted it. That's a pretty cool scenario. We've collaborated for an hour, and your teacher wants to show you potentially the power of AI versus having you go translate your thoughts again. So I think there's a lot of use cases and scenarios on whether it be translation, which Sean talked about, magic design in terms of creating design. There's so many areas that every platform up here and that you guys are working with can go. And that's kind of what I'm most fascinated about. I walked the AIR Show. Hopefully all you guys have walked the AIR Show. There's about 100 different AI apps down there doing, specific subject areas and specific things. And I think that's what's really cool. And so I think when we think about it at Canva, we think, okay, how can we help visual communication? How can we make things more efficient for the students, the educators, as it relates to visual communication? And that's really what we're going to focus on over the time being. But I'm pretty excited. I mean, there's just so many cool tools out there in AI. It's pretty cool. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment. So we have time for one more question. And I just want to, most of the people in this room are probably in the ed tech field. And the four of you work in education, but sort of with general tech, with design and social media tech. If there's one thing you sort of want to leave this whole room with about how your company thinks about education and the role you play in the ed tech ecosystem, what's the core takeaway that you'd like people to understand? Oh, let's go.
You're looking at me.
I am.
On the list.
Let's go
down the line.
You can go down there. Go for it.
You want me to go first? I think the one takeaway that I think about that I've held in my career is equity and access. And I think education should not be limited by where you live, how much money you have, and that's ultimately why I came to Canva. I think it really has to be rooted in equity and access. And that can mean a lot of things, but I would say the one takeaway that you should take away from all of these sessions is how are we as an ed tech community, educators, making all of our solutions, our products, our thoughts more accessible and equitable to everybody around the world.
Great. Lauren.
I love that. And like, I think it's so cool, these products that are now built in the browser. Like I have, I mentioned at the top, I used to be a teacher in India, and at my school, they only have one computer. I think it's from like 1998. And my students are on there, like they're using Figma. They can use Canva and design things. And like, that's just so incredible that we've reached a point where these professional grade tools can be used on the web and made accessible to everyone. And that's just going to blow open the doors on who ultimately shapes, the future of the things that we're using. I guess since you took that great point, I think maybe one idea that we talk with a lot of schools about is that, your kids, there's so many tools you could choose from. There's so many tools you're sharing with your teachers. They're overwhelmed. It's too much. What is the benefit of maybe selecting a tool that can be great for the classroom, but also help your student build up those skills that they will carry with them into the workplace? So, while they're learning Canva and Figma to do their science experiments, they're learning how to use those tools, and those are professional grade tools that they will continue to be able to put on their resume, to use in their future jobs. And so how do you consolidate that to make your teachers' lives a little bit easier while also helping your students build up those skills that will give them a leg up in the future?
Terrific. Please.
Kind of through all this, what exactly was the question again?
The question is just
One take.
so
Takeaway.
one takeaway about what you see TikTok's role in the education ecosystem being.
Yeah, I don't think we're trying to make ed tech products, and we're not trying to be an education platform. We just happen to become one because organically people want to learn from each other, and they want to learn quickly and accessibly. And I think the one takeaway is that's where the future youth is. So if you're not there, that's a big disadvantage. When I was interviewing like 3 years ago, when I got a call, I told my daughter, who was at kindergarten that time, now in 3rd grade, that I had an interview coming up, and she's like, "Mom, you got to make a TikTok." And I'm like, I'm not even on TikTok. She's like, "You have to," and she was right. And I think like being able to know that maybe we don't know everything about that world, and that's okay because we're learning, but our youth is so ingrained in it. And so how do we meet them where they are? And I think you can get a lot of just being like me, being a lurker on TikTok. I don't make content. I'm part of the crew that watches a lot of content that's being made.
Yeah, there's an interesting point in there too about like TikTok is so that younger generation loves it so much. What do they like? Are there principles that we might be able to abstract out as an ed tech community about why they love
seeing
it so
like
much?
people actually using it. So I went to speak career day at my daughter's school, and like people wanted autographs. I'm like, I'm not a creator, but just like Crunch Labs and like some of these toys that they are learning from, they're seeing it on TikTok and how it's being played and how they're growing. That I think just making sure you're meeting your users or your intended users where they are in an organic way and not a very, I call it the grunge era. We're not into, looking like a certain way. We want to know people that look like us.
John, how about you?
Yeah, so, for this audience, what I'd like them to think about when they're thinking about YouTube and its role in the educational space is we do have that huge audience of folks of all kinds, youth audience, returning to work, folks that are looking to upskill, folks that are changing their careers. They're all there on YouTube learning, and where we're really focused on is working with everyone in this room to make sure that we're meeting the needs of those folks. So if you're a teacher in a classroom, we want to make sure that you can access great content in a way that's responsible, in a way that is supportive of the learning objectives that you have. If you're an ed tech company, we'd love to talk to you about how we can help you provide a video experience as part of your platform so that folks can really reach that great content, because it's not really about YouTube, it's about the creators that inspire learners, right? And that capture learners and capture their curiosity. If you're a higher ed organization, we'd love to talk to you about how we can work together to meet your goals of educating people via the platform. And if you're a creator, obviously, we would love for you to continue to create really high quality content and use it put it on the platform for the whole world to see.
And create courses, right?
Sure, create as many courses as you want.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much to our audience, and to our panelists who are absolutely amazing. Do you have a final word you want to say? Oh,
Thanks,
thank you
everyone.
so much.
Thank you.